Good afternoon. Welcome to alumni, parents, friends of the university, and special guests. I am really excited to be here and to represent the Board of Trustees at the GW Global Forum this year. Before I have the honor of introducing Madame Elisabeth Preval, First Lady of the Republic of Haiti, I would like to highlight some interesting connections she and I share, as well as highlight some of Madame Preval's work in the area of children's health and education. Madame Preval is an alumna of GW and mother of a student at our university. I am the daughter of an alumna. My father graduated class of 1943 as a civil engineer. Both of us shared a geographical location. We are neighbors, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Since graduating from George Washington with a master's in business administration, Madame Preval has distinguished herself with a career in Haiti's commercial banking system, where she specialized in the field of corporate credit. She has also served as a financial specialist in the areas of road infrastructure and power generation, with an emphasis on project financing and financial monitoring. More recently, Madame Preval has served in the Haitian government as an economic advisor. Haiti's predominance in headline news since the catastrophic earthquake in January made the world aware of the country's needs and challenges. Madame Preval has devoted much of her time, her energy, since then to the cause of traumatized children living in tent cities. During a visit to GW this past spring, Madame Preval addressed the urgency around rebuilding the country's education system. In addition to pressing issues of health and wellness, she is focusing on addressing the education needs of children. The 7.0 magnitude earthquake completely destroyed over 4,000 schools, making it impossible for 1.5 million children to return to their studies. As an academic institution, GW felt extremely drawn to this cause and Madame Preval's concern. To quote President Stephen Knapp, shares Madame Preval has personally helped to harness the passion of our students, the expertise of our faculty, and the collective engagement of our entire university community. In fact, I would like to point out that GW's project MediShare Medical Mission was the first mission to visit Haiti with medical students who treated 200 patients per day for 4 days, totaling 800 patients. This is just one example of many where GW University is at the forefront of addressing global issues. We will assuredly learn of more examples of where GW is at this forefront during a very interesting panel discussion on global women's issues following Madame Preval's speech. It is my pleasure to introduce Madame Preval, who has inspired and continues to inspire the GW community and the world. Welcome, Madame Preval.
Dear Dr. Knapp, distinguished members of the Board of Trustees of George Washington University, distinguished guests, I must congratulate all of you for being here today to dedicate your thoughts and attention to problems that do not seem to be directly linked to your regular concern. How the emerging economy are impacted by the global financial crisis. What is the situation of women in the world today in terms of access to healthcare and education, protection of their rights, and guarantees issue? Those issues that are not the core subject matter of this, those issues that are the core subject matters of this forum could sound as remote problems for most American citizens. But isn't it the role of the university to address these kinds of problems? Isn't it the essence of the university to address issues that goes beyond immediacy and proximity and mobilize its resources in order to reach universality? I think GW is in the perfect track. And this second annual forum, it is a strong proof of your commitment as faculty and alumni to universality. It is also, according to my own experience with GW, a testimony of the culture of generosity that I have always found in my alma mater. I have been a direct beneficiary of this culture of generosity myself. First, when I was a foreign student at GW in 1988 for my MBA study in finance, I will never forget the special attention that all the foreign students were receiving from GW community. I mean the patience, consideration that faculty, dean, administrative personnel, and even the native students themselves used to bring to foreign students to assist them in practically every aspect of their study and living condition on campus. In general, students from third world countries are not accustomed to teachers or deans being attentive to their problems. The teachers are not even accessible out of the classroom. At GW, they used to listen to us and act as counselors and friends in spite of the knowledge gap between us. Now, as a freshman parent, I still regularly experiment through my son, Carl de la Tour, who is studying business administration here, how this university is global and connected to the real problems of the world. Recently, while in New York for the Clinton Global Initiative General Assembly, I was to abandon several times my official meeting to discuss with Carl issues of economics and the impact of the international crisis on public policies. He was using as supporting materials of information for his homework the collection of annual interviews his late father, as governor of the Haitian Central Bank, which is the Federal Reserve in the United States, used to give in the 1990s to the national press every 1st of January. I was impressed by this freshman to comment my late husband's statement on the light of what is happening today in the international economy and in Haiti. This strange triangular conversation involving a father and deceased governor of the central bank, a freshman mother, and the freshman himself left me with the feeling of how relative our notions of space and times are. Really, you make the world small and close to us at GW, and it is indeed. Consider how the economic crisis has spread over the world. Consider how climate change, insecurity, viruses and bacteria are crossing our borders with no need for visa or custom clearance. However, while we recognize that the problems are global, we cannot comfort ourselves within the limit of our own well-being. Our responsibility is to make opportunities global. It is a fatality that 1.5 billion people have to live on $1 or less, and that the majority of them are women. It is a fatality that 2/3 of the world illiterate adults are women, that 585,000 women that dies each year from causes related to pregnancy and childbirth, 99% of them in developing countries. It is a fatality that 11 million children die every year before the age of 5 in developing countries because of malnutrition, diarrhea, and other infectious disease. It is a fatality that millions of women and girls between 10 to 25% according to the World Health Organization, are sexually abused either as children or as adults. Do we have to accept it as a fate of nature that 2 million girls in the world remain forcibly subjected to genital manipulation each year, with all the consequences with death, chronic infection, obstruction childbirth, and painful scarring? These problems seem endemic to most developing countries. Now I dare referring to my own country, a country whose nickname has become the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. The acuteness and amplitude of this problem takes an alarming proportion, especially after the shock of January 12 earthquake that destroyed 80% of the capital, Port-au-Prince, destroy or damage 4,000 schools, destroy or damage all government facilities, claim for over 250,000 deaths, over 240,000 wounded, and left 1.2 million people living in over 1,000 tent cities in which women and children are the most vulnerable. This adds up to many other challenges the country was already facing before January 12. That means, to mention a few, the highest infant and child mortality rate of the Latin American and Caribbean world, the highest maternal mortality rate in the Western Hemisphere, 623 for 100,000, which can be understood since 65% of delivery occur in a private home. The lowest percentage of doctors per capita, 2.7 doctors for 10,000 inhabitants, with the highest concentration in the capital of Port-au-Prince, with 7.1 doctors for 10,000 inhabitants. The lowest rate of school enrollment in the region, the highest rate of HIV prevalence, etc. Infant mortality is 58% in urban area and 76 in rural area. This excess of mortality persists even after 1 year. Over every 1,000 children surviving their first anniversary, 41 will not survive in the rural areas. The most common mortality cause for children aged between 0 and 5 are malnutrition, infection, intestinal disease, flu, and pneumonia, obviously a pattern associated to the condition of poverty. There is no specific service in charge of neonatal morbidity except a limited number of under-equipped and understaffed hospitals in the West Department, where 3.6 million people are living. Haitian women have the highest HIV seroprevalence outside Africa. Although this rate has been decreasing because of the rigorous national program to increase the number of patients in antiretroviral therapy, our women still have the highest rate of cervical cancer in the Western Hemisphere. Regarding the situation of education, before the earthquake, 25% of school-age children could not have access to primary education. Of those who could afford to attend school, 80% had to go to a private school where parents have to pay fees which amounts to 30 to 35% of their annual income. More than 1/3 of the Haitian population has never had a chance to go to school. Women are less lucky since they represent 41.1% of the total, while men account for 35.4%. Those illiterate Haitians are likely more located in rural areas, 53%, versus 19% in urban areas. For each 100 children who enter the first grade, only 8 of them will finish high school. And then begins a new fight for access to the university because of its limited capacity. This is the reason why the Haitian student population in the Dominican Republic is increasing considerably, adding an extra pressure over the budget of Haitian families. It has been estimated that between $50 and $75 million are transferred annually by Haitian families to finance tuition in the Dominican Republic. Those were a few examples illustrating an already dramatic situation for Haitian women and children before the earthquake. With such figure, it is not difficult to imagine the impact of the quake on the day-to-day lives of most Haitians, with a special burden on women and children. Most of them have to survive in extremely primitive conditions, with all public utilities unable to deliver the most basic services. Women and children already exposed to other diseases such as tuberculosis and malaria have become more vulnerable. The situation of more than 1 million people living in the overcrowded tent cities complicates the fight against the contagion. The upcoming of the rain season put also the challenge to eliminate stagnant waters that facilitate the reproduction of mosquitoes and encourages epidemic of malaria. All this means a higher vulnerability, especially for the poorest family who become exposed to trafficking of children through the forced adoption. Also for women who have become more exposed to sexual abuse and violence. Now, since a week, while fighting with limited resources to survive the impact of the earthquake, the Haitian population has been exposed to a new challenge, the cholera bacteria. So far, Haiti had been saved from the 6th pandemic that had ravaged countries from Europe to Asia and Africa and caused millions of deaths. The 7th pandemic, which is still ongoing today, started from Indonesia in 1961, then expanded to Asia in 1962, the Middle East and Europe in 1965, Africa in 1970, and reached Latin America in 1991. This pandemic has spared Haiti so far. After a week of fighting this pandemic, the figures are known today. More than 300 people deceased, approximately 4,000 hospitalized in overcrowded health centers, not equipped to manage the situation. Fortunately, the country has learned from the last January 12th disaster, and the response of the government has been appropriated so far. Due to the mobilization of the international community, the response of the United Nations and bilateral agency, the involvement of NGOs in a massive and coordinated response, the expansion of the bacteria seems to be controlled. Fortunately, there is no confirmed evidence that the cholera has reached Port-au-Prince, where the impact would be difficult to manage, especially in the tent cities where approximately 1.2 million people are living in difficult conditions. However, we have to stay vigilant. Cholera is a waterborne disease. The poor living conditions, such as high concentration of people, lack of hygiene, lack of sanitation, and the difficulty of accessing clean drinking water facilitate the spread of the Vibrio in the human community. Subject to low immunity, undernourished children, and people living with HIV and the elderly are the greatest risk of death if infected. That is why special attention has to be brought to these categories of people. The solidarity expressed by the international community after the earthquake and with the recent surge of the cholera was crucial for Haiti. The response for the population, the courage, the determination, and solidarity they show at all levels of the Haitian society are encouraging. We can nourish the hope that Haitians can rebuild Haiti, knowing that we can count on the help of many friends abroad. I have already talked of my own experience when I initiated since February 2010 a project of psychological support named Plastimoun in cooperation with the Ministry of Education. The goal was to assist thousands of Haitian children traumatized by the catastrophe of January 12 and prepare them to be better off before going back to school. More than 3,000 children, mostly coming from the metropolitan area, integrated the different centers of psychological support that were put in place. Every center is equipped with classrooms laid out in buses school, and the children were happy to be in a very different and convivial environment with various learning and recreational activities, drawing, pottery, storytelling, music, dance, etc. Children participating in the project Plastimoun are taken outside their regular habitat to two various historical sites and cultural sites of the country. Some of them visited Martinique and Guadeloupe and will never forget this experience in their whole life. This activity brought a new shade of life to the life of many children and their families. The project is expanding in the next December, and we will be able to assist more than 60,000 children. This initiative is just one of the many other initiatives blossoming in the Haitian society. Many private sector organizations, NGOs, and international institutions involved in education are willing to open schools, improve quality of learning, training teachers. We need to encourage and sustain such initiatives while providing the necessary resources to support them, and at the same time help to design a scheme where government will support parents and exempt all children from school fees. The Ministry of Education, with the help of the Presidential Commission for Education and the technical assistance of the Inter-American Development Bank, has designed an operation plan to guarantee 9 years of free basic schooling to every Haitian child, providing each one of them a daily meal and the necessary textbooks. This plan puts a special focus on children by proposing an integrated approach for early childhood, where education, nutrition, health services, and parent participation contribute to create a new environment for the children aged 0 to 5. The curriculum will be revised, and Haitian children will be exposed to 4 languages spoken in the region. Creole and French are 2 official languages, and then Spanish and English. 60,000 teachers will receive in-service with blended methods and online and face-to-face training. The plan also includes a complete re-engineering of the vocational and technical education subsystem to make it a more demand-driven. The Haitian university system, 80% of which has been destroyed by the earthquake, will also be re-engineered, and I know the Haitian academia counts a lot on the support and assistance of the American university. During this week, Monday to Tuesday, a group of 30 participants from more than 15 American colleges and universities, which includes the GW, were present in Haiti in a symposium where their Haitian counterparts to address the issues of reconstruction and the role the universities can play in that process. Those signs are very encouraging to us, and they increase our hope that we might be able to go out of the tunnel one day. In that respect, I have to express my deep gratitude to George Washington for his constant and growing effort to support the reconstruction process of Haiti. George Washington University have organized 2 special gatherings in support of our rebuilding effort in Haiti in March and in April of 2010. I consider my participation at this forum as an additional contribution of George Washington University to the Haitian cause because of the awareness you give to Haitian problems and opportunities. Distinguished guests, fellow students, to finish, let me say how honored I am to be able to address this audience in the company of so prestigious keynote speakers such as Mr. Carlos Slim, Dr. Anwar Gargash, and Mr. John Snow. Congratulations for your presence here and in the forum. The concern you have expressed go beyond the spectrum of your own specific country and region and embrace the perspective of the planet. This small village, we have the responsibility to transform for the welfare of the women and children, and therefore of the whole humanity. Thank you again for your patient attention. Thank you.